My name is Alex. I'm from Distress Centres of Greater Toronto. I work in funds development. That's working on marketing, digital, fundraising, all of those fun things. Today, we're joined by Julia, Romina, and Monica, who are three volunteers who come from a range of programs at Distress Centres, who've worked with us for a number of months, years, and are here to tell us a bit more about volunteering at this time, about their training, about everything that they've been doing. So yeah, I'll hand it over to these guys. If you want to introduce yourselves, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. My name is Monica. I'm 25. I've been volunteering for about a year. It will be 1 year in May. I went to McMaster University. I did a double major in health studies and gerontology. Currently in my second year at Yorkville for Master of Arts in Counseling Psych. I've been trained on a couple of programs. We'll speak to that later on in the webinar. And I also host a professional page called Tinker with Thoughts, where I'm on Instagram, where I post content of the program, some wisdom quotes, good reads I like to read, psychological stuff, psychology research for anyone who's a psych major or an aspiring psychotherapist like myself, and basically whoever's interested.
Thanks, Monica. I'm Romina, and I've been volunteering with Distress Centres for almost 6 months now. And I graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Psychology from Queen's University last year. So I will actually be going and doing my Master's of Social Work next year. Really excited. And yeah, I guess it's a short little bit about me.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me on. So I did a live 2 weeks ago with the Distress Center. So I introduced myself a little bit then, but I'll just reiterate everything. My name is Julia, and I am currently doing my postgraduate in addictions and mental health. I graduated from U of T with Honors Bachelor of Science in Psychology and Philosophy. And I'm doing this program at the Distress Centres of Greater Toronto, which was formerly Spectra Helpline. And I'm also doing research at a couple of other institutions for trauma and attachment. So I'm really excited to be here today and with my fellow colleagues.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks again, everyone. Thanks for being here. Yeah, we really appreciate it. I know it's a Sunday evening, and I'm sure that, it's been a busy week for all of you guys. So I appreciate you taking this time to be with us tonight. Again, you do a lot for the organization. You spend time, commit time on the helplines, helping like hundreds of people. So this is just awesome that you're here, to help encourage people, to give them an insight into, how everything works. So yeah, thank you. I guess we'll get going with the first question. It's, really probably one that everyone's thinking is on the top of their minds, like as they're watching this, is like, how are things changing at the moment? Like how has the COVID-19 situation, the pandemic, impacted the calls? How's it impacted, the texts and other interactions that you have? And how's it impacted your own volunteering in terms of working remotely? It'd be great to kind of hear a bit about that. Definitely.
Yeah, so there has been a lot of changes. So before, when I mentioned I've been trained on a couple of programs, I was talking about the English helpline, the SBS, and mentoring. I'll talk about the English first. Basically, you get to do two things. You can either help in the office, or you can have it remotely. It's been a little difficult doing it remotely because everyone's at home now. Have a dog, so that piece isn't there anymore. But I have been able to successfully use the SBS, and that stands for Canadian Suicide Prevention Services. Basically, what I do is I help those through text. And that has been a lot easier because I can use my laptop, my phone, or whatever device I have and take it around the house. No, I don't actually do that, but I can take it where I want. And that kind of gives me a safe space because no one's reading it. There's a lot of young teenagers, children young adults who actually use this service a lot more now. I feel like because of COVID-related stressors, there's a lot more to talk about, and there's a lot of people who are using it because you don't really want to go in your room and talk about something anymore. You kind of want to be able to have no one listen to what you're saying, so people text about it, and that is very helpful for them, and it kind of gives us a way to help them too, since we're not everyone is able to use the helpline service at home due to COVID. The mentoring, that has changed a little bit as well. I used to go in the office and train people, but because there's a safety hazard, we don't do that anymore, but there will be more information. And I know Spectra is trying to figure something out as to how to train remotely. So if you are interested, as soon as that information comes out, just follow the Instagram page and you'll be informed there.
Cool. Awesome. That's really interesting. Okay, fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's been really great how quickly the Distress Center has been able to respond. I think maybe it's a step in the right direction for after the pandemic is over. For those, who've enjoyed actually volunteering from home, maybe it can open up more possibilities and more flexibility too for the ones who travel really far or for overnight shifts, make it more comfortable to take them from your own home. So I think that's been a positive change. And there's been a lot of positivity too in the organization, both in terms of supporting the callers and also supporting the volunteers themselves to practice self-care and to just to take care of themselves. And I think overall it's been really really surprisingly positive.
For sure.
Do you think people would be more interested in volunteering if they knew that they could do remote working now? Like before it was like based at a center, and maybe now if they knew that they could do it, at home, it might make it easier for like night shifts and like overnight commitments and things like that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because I think you can make more time that way. You can put it into your schedule. Like if you go to school or you have a job, you're able to figure out when you want to do it next.
Yeah, I think also having the option, because personally I really enjoyed going to the center and being able to have that separate space. But for those who simply, they don't need that or they prefer to keep at home, having the option is wonderful.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really nice to be able to be doing this from home. It wasn't something that I considered coming into the helpline and volunteering, because I love going to the space, which is what we talked about a little bit last time together when we all had our call. But I love being in the environment and around all of my friends, and it's really comforting to be able to debrief after a really tough call. So I feel like that would probably be the only con, but we're working on even finding ways to connect with one another at home. So when that comes up, I feel like that will make it even easier to be remote. But definitely being able to be remote if you have a quiet space is wonderful. And like Monica's doing, the tech service is great too if you can't be on the phone or talk to people that way. So we definitely have these really great options that I guess I wouldn't have been able to explore had, this unfortunate event not happened. But it's been working out pretty well in terms of switching over to remote.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's kind of interesting. Are there any other things that you got, any particular, I don't know, things that you've noticed yourselves, unique kind of, I don't even know, like things you didn't realize that would be different before? I guess, before the whole thing happened, I guess you didn't really, no one knew this was going to happen, really. But, when your coordinator spoke to you, did you have an idea of what remote working would look like, or did you think maybe you'd have to stop volunteering, or what were your initial thoughts, and what have you learned over that time, between then and now?
To be honest, I had the remote service before COVID, so I don't think I can speak to this. Maybe Julian.
Yeah, I didn't. I haven't done it at home before, so I definitely think that there was a little bit of the scare, because going into the office is kind of like my safety net for doing all this. And like I mentioned, like being able to talk to my mentors or the people around me after like a really hard day has been, I was like, oh my God, I don't have that anymore. So what am I going to do now? But I think that definitely it is difficult to still take the calls at home and remotely because of the lack of, communication with anyone else in the organization during this time. And I definitely didn't expect that and thought that, the center would always be there. I'd always be able to go in. So that gave me a little bit of a scare. But I think it has definitely been, we've got all of the emails coming in from our coordinators who have been more than helpful in being able to take our calls and our questions, and even hosting like some sessions for us to get started online. So I found like that was really helpful because I'm very technologically challenged. Like I can't do anything on the computer without steps. So they've been really sweet in giving us all of the information, definitely not leaving us blind, which I find was really helpful.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Julia. Yeah, I was originally very apprehensive about it because of the space that you don't get to have anymore, and how are you going to distance yourself from the calls after if you're taking them from your own bedroom, but I found that a big difference has been my mindset and how I have to prepare for a call now versus how I used to prepare before, which, when I used to go into the distress center, simply by being there, be already in the mindset, but now it's having to mentally prepare yourself for what could be a good or possibly a difficult call. And I found that has been a little bit more challenging, but not impossible. So I think thanks to the support that we've been given and the fact that the volunteers seem very connected, it's made me more motivated than ever.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to add one thing, though, something to what Julia said, that how you found it more motivating to actually go into the office. One thing that came up to me was that after like in the beginning when I was trained, I used to actually turn around and be like, oh my God, like I need to talk to someone. I can't do that here. You're not allowed to share it or anything like that. So now I just find myself texting my mentor, or calling my supervisor. So definitely that's one thing I do miss.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find yourselves contacting your mentor or your coordinator more now than you used to, or like was it different before because you were like in the office, you'd kind of just like talk to people, like to the coordinator like more often? I don't know, like I'm not sure what I'm saying, but like.
No, I think I get your question is like how often are you contacting, and like for me, I would consistently like just go and check in with my mentor like throughout my whole shift, or like my coordinator who's ever there, just to like keep asking, making sure I'm on the right page. Like if a hard call comes up, making sure I take the right direction and steps afterwards. But I find that I'm doing a lot more things on my own, so taking a lot more initiative, which I found has been really helpful for me because I'm not consistently like, oh my God, I hope I don't do the wrong thing. I'm kind of stepping back and thinking about it and thinking like, okay, I know everyone has a lot going on their plate, and what can I do right now to make that easier for them? So I've been taking those steps that way. So I feel like it's definitely helped me to be more independent on the lines. I don't know if anyone can speak to that.
Yeah. I would agree.
Yeah, you would agree, Romina?
Yeah, I was saying just the fact that I'm not, I've only been with the Distress Center for a short time. So it's definitely taken some time to get used to myself in the role. And then after I'm finally used to it, now this big change has come. And so it's tested me in a different way. But I find myself coming back to the basics and remembering that at the end of the day, we're just here to support people, and it's not about saying the right thing. There is no right or wrong at the end of the day, but it's really just about being there and providing the space for people.
Yeah, that's an amazing answer. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I can sense your positivity through all this. Like the way you speak about it, it's so positive and it's so nice to hear.
Yeah, I think we all do.
I think that's definitely something that that I noticed quite a lot like across the organization is the amount of positivity that people have. I think as well, like another thing that's like really important is how people tend to like own their program that they work on or like volunteer on. And that's like something that's really special. You'll have volunteers who've have only been with us for like maybe 3 months, but they love the program that they volunteer on. They like the callers. They may have some frequent callers, or they may really like their coordinator or the organization itself. And it's interesting because we do have so many different programs at the organization. Sometimes it's hard to forget like how much we do. Like we have the English helplines, we have multilingual helplines in 7 different languages. We do the text and online chat, and then we do things like we have helplines in hospitals in Paro. We have the TTC. Could you guys maybe talk a bit about like the differences in your programs? It'd be interesting to kind of look at, some of you do like Julia, you do outbound calls, which is interesting. Am I right in saying that? Sorry.
Yeah. I do a lot of the outbound contacts, and I find, like you mentioned, that there's so many different things, but as you explore the helpline and the different avenues, I really do believe that you find one that like you fit best. And I think for me, as you keep going through, you'll realize that there's so many programs and like there's so much to do. So I do a lot of the outbound stuff, and I've done a lot of outreach initiatives. And I've been like going in recruiting volunteers, or like going out and raising awareness for certain things for the helpline. So I found those two things are really of high interest to me. I like being the one to call out and to reach out and to see how they're doing, because a lot of the times when we have our callers, they already know that they want support in distress. But when I do the outbound calls, I get to talk to the same people consistently. I get to have conversations with them and keep carrying them on throughout the week. So I really, really enjoy that. It gives me a little bit more of a deeper connection with our callers. So I found that very helpful. And yeah, that's it for about the outbound programs. I don't know if anyone else does any outbound. I know Monica also does some telecheck stuff.
Yes, but like you said, you kind of get to know what you like and what you don't like. So don't like the telecheck.
Okay.
So I focus more on the English helpline and the CSBS. I feel like the biggest difference with CSBS text and helpline is that when you're texting someone, you don't know the tone of that text. You don't know the feeling that comes with that word. But when you're speaking to them, you know the silences. You know you can put meanings to those silences and meanings to those questions. Biggest difference. Do you find that with the telecheck that you can continue on with conversations, but then with other calls you can't?
I feel like some callers, if they're not wanting to talk that day, they'll just be like, "Hi, I'm doing fine. Thanks for calling. Bye." And I was like, okay, that's what you needed today. Like, and then there's other people who will have like a really long conversation and meaningful about like what went on in their day, or like something really, rough happened for them and they've been working through it. And a lot of them are just so appreciative that we call them every day, and that they get to know, like, at this time, we're getting a call, we're getting a checkup. And especially the seniors, a lot of them are scared because they're lonely and isolated. They're like, nobody knows, where I am or what's going on in my life. Like, I need that safety and security for someone to check in. So definitely, like, some can be a lot longer and some can be a lot shorter, and you have to gauge the conversation a little bit. Like, if they have, people over, then you're not going to want to continue. And yeah, so definitely I can see how the text, I haven't personally done text, but I can definitely see how it would be a lot more challenging.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I can imagine that. And I can imagine a lot of more people are texting now, since we're all stuck at home. Maybe a lot of people don't have the privacy to be calling the lines anymore, even if that's what they prefer. So have you, Monica, been able to see like a change in like the number of people texting?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You nailed it. Like, there are a lot of people who are texting, and I think I said this before, that the younger generation is doing it more. Mm-hmm. I don't know why this is a trend now, obviously because of COVID, and like you said, a lot of people aren't able to get that privacy. I also feel it's a trend for your phone to text anyways. Right. But one of the things that we get taught is that you don't use emojis because it's not like a kind of tactic, right? but like that's where the information gets lost. So there's a lot of different that I have been seeing. Yeah.
That's interesting to hear that, you know, if we don't use emojis, that it can actually change the tone of the conversation too.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like we're speaking their language, or we're trying to speak their language and connect with them. But at the end of the day, emojis play such a big role in that. And it's interesting how that doesn't come across as being professional when it's just an emotion that we're trying to convey.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see why you say that. It's also more like, I guess, kind of trying to get the younger generation to speak their feelings instead of emoji them.
Emoji them. I love that. Yeah, that's interesting because, like, you know, there's different faces. Like, there's different crying faces. Like, some's like a happy cry, one's like a really like downpour cry, and I feel like that conveys so much. But yeah, that's really interesting to hear that you don't use the emojis, but definitely because it's CSPS and they're serious conversations that like you don't want to throw the wrong emotion in there and then like you know, set off a crisis. So that definitely makes sense. But I can see how it would be a lot harder for the younger generation, especially to convey themselves in that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I usually do it with emails and stuff. Like if I send an email and I want to convey like tone and, you know, like, I don't know, like I always add an emoji. So that's, I'll add a smile so that the person knows that I'm like, you know, happy. Like, you know, that's...
right.
Yeah. That's really interesting. Definitely. Have any of you actually done any shifts on any of the programs at the organization, like the TTC Crisis Link or anything?
No,
I haven't.
No.
But yeah, that's it. I mean, we do have a lot. Like I said, we do a number of different programs. So I guess it's probably interesting in terms of like, did you know that we did as much when you first started volunteering? Like, have you found out about other opportunities with us whilst you've been volunteering?
Oh yeah, so many. Like definitely for me, the change, because me and Monica, we came from Spectre Helpline. So moving over, we were just this one or two like center distress line, and now there's like so many more opportunities and so many more programs to be involved in. So I think that would be, the more we look into it, the more we can explore. I feel like that would be super interesting to look into.
Yeah, you just ask. Like they don't actually, the supervisors or your mentor or whatever, they don't actually tell you. You kind of have to ask, and they won't say no. They'll just tell you, well, there's this. What would you like to do next? Well, they're really full in that way too.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of room to grow.
Oh yeah.
Interesting. And I guess actually that's also one thing that I think I've discussed with different volunteers before. Like you guys mentioned that you came from initially what was Spectre Helpline, which is now kind of combined into the one organization. And it's interesting also thinking about not just the programs but like the training. Like how was your training different? Like talking amongst yourselves, like you may realize that there are different ways that the Spectre trained people to how Toronto Distress Centres trained people initially. Mm-hmm. So that would be interesting to hear about as well, maybe.
Yeah. So for Spectra, it was about a week long. We had a application that you could actually, if whoever's interested for the future, you can visit it on spectrahelpline.org and just follow the prompts. The application is fairly simple. It just asks why you're interested, what kind of skills you have or are willing to learn, your availability, all that fun stuff that you fill out for job application too. And then you go for an interview. That's on site, and that kind of becomes a real deal. It was a real deal for me because the interviewer, she spat out a lot of different scenarios, things that I was like, does this really happen? Assured me that, we have protocols, we have all this. And I guess she was trying to figure out if like, I was able to handle certain situations properly. Were definitely helpful. Like I wouldn't say they prepare you 100%, but they give you an idea of what it's like to help. And there's also 3-day training and 2-day phone training, which Julia can give us more insight on.
Yeah, so I think you did it in about 3 days. I did it over a course of a month, every Saturday. So I did like full Saturday days from like 9 to 5. And each day we just went over kind of some different topics. And it started very gentle, as we mentioned before. Like they started easy on us with like just the different kinds of lines, the different programs. And then we went into more crisis training, how to de-escalate, how to report things like elder abuse and child abuse. And these are like the things that I found have helped me even in my professional practice, because they really outlined and highlighted how to do these specific procedures and protocols and to do them in the right way. So that was helpful, as well as key things to look out for and how to get people to kind of speak and convey their emotions. Whereas someone who's a new caller who might not understand what we do on the helpline, but someone who's been calling for so long can just pick up the phone and like go right into it. So that has been a challenge too, is figuring out where they're at in their journey and how much they want to speak about certain things and how much they don't. So we've definitely discussed all of that. And then we've had the phone training as well, which I found was very helpful. And I think Romina has done her training a little differently.
Yeah, so I think in terms of the application and the interview was very similar, and the topics we covered were probably the same as well. But the training sessions for us, it was an 8-week training session where we did one evening every week for about 8 weeks. We went and covered a different topic each week, and then we had 2 full days on Saturdays where we covered some more intense topics as well. And part of the training was always doing some role playing. So I felt that that was a really great way to get us started in terms of, being comfortable talking to people and even talking about certain topics that you wouldn't normally be thinking about how you would be feeling as the listener. But, when you're listening to certain calls, you also, it's only human. You also end up feeling things, right? So it's about learning to put those feelings aside and acknowledge them and notice them as well, so that you can better help people. And it was very different from when I actually got on the phone. Obviously, role playing with your classmates is not the same as role play or actually having a conversation. But it does make you more comfortable with it.
Yeah, for sure. Another thing I'd like to add is that during the 3 days training that I had, I was able to actually put into practice what we learned in school. So for me to say, okay, we have to follow this protocol for whatever kind of caller, it was like, okay, so I learned this, but what if this happened? How can it be different? Or what can I do or say differently? So definitely good practice. The role play, Marina, good thing you said that. Totally forgot about that. A lot. And some volunteers came in too to talk about their experiences and the hardship. So that was a plus as well.
Yeah, and just to speak to that again, like the people, like the mentors who were training us had been on the lines for quite some time and had such varying differences of experiences. And so I know in our role plays, someone would kind of stand back and then throw a new kind of curveball to the conversation. So that was interesting because we got to see how they've handled the calls and the ways in which the call can completely change at any moment based on what's going on. So that was helpful. And just being able to hear their experiences on the lines has really, I think we can all speak to, like, it's really motivating and encouraging to see, like, we're like more timid and shy in the beginning. And then at the end, we see them like so confident to tackle any call that comes their way. And it's very, very encouraging.
Yeah. And, just to keep going off of that, one of the other parts of my training was that after the initial 10 sessions that we did, 8-week training, I actually had to go in and shadow a volunteer on their shift. So I would actually be listening in for a whole shift and listen to how they approach different conversations. And then the second time, I would actually be the one talking, and another volunteer would be listening to me and giving me feedback. And after both of these 2 sessions were completed, then that's when I went on my own and based on everything that I've learned, tried to incorporate it.
Yeah, I think that's what the mentors do. That's the exact same thing. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Totally.
Did you guys find that, like, as you were going along, like, people became mentors, like, by accident, or like you accidentally kind of mentored people, like, without even officially being a mentor for them? Did you find that at all? Like, did you form friendships, like, with people and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I guess what I meant was when I turn around and say, oh, I need to talk about this, that kind of was like the mentoring thing as well, where the other volunteer would talk to me about how they would handle it or how better it could have been or that kind of thing. So I guess it's got a mentor kind of characteristic to it as well. But to be an actual mentor, I think there's like a couple-hour training for that I got.
Mm-hmm. I actually had a unique experience because when it was my turn to go in and listen to my mentors on their call, my mentor was actually sick that day, so I had to shadow somebody else. And they weren't, officially a mentor, but yeah, I learned a lot from them and their conversations. And I think, at the end of the day, we're all mentors to each other. We all go through the same trainings and listen to so many conversations that, at the end of the day, we can each give each other advice, and it doesn't matter if we have a title or not. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, there's just so many people, especially at the center that I volunteer at. There's just so many new faces, and whether I've seen you there before or haven't, like we just have this shared experience of doing something really amazing and having these really tough calls. So whether we have a chance to talk in between our calls or not, even to introduce ourselves, like if they turn around and they need something, like that's it. Like drop everything. Like we're there. We totally get it. And I feel like that's just something absolutely crazy about this, is like having the support ever you need it, which is why remote volunteering has been a little difficult for me, because I love my center and I love the people who volunteer with me. And that just really, it keeps you going. Like people just fall into the positions of being able to support you more or less based on their own like practice and experiences. And it just comes out as it does. As the second you turn around and meet someone, and like Monica's nodding over here and I hear Romina saying, yeah, like that's just how it is. It's hard to explain that connection that you have with the other mentors.
It's like you kind of build your own family there. Everyone's same things, everyone has almost the same colors, the same kind of experience. So yeah, it's a good feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys think that when we one day, I'm not sure when, but like when we eventually go back to physical locations, like to each of the centers, do you think you'll have changed like how outgoing and like not outgoing, but like how much you like contact and stay in touch with and form friendships and things like that? Like do you think there'll be more of that in the future?
Oh yeah. There's like so many people that I wish I would have grabbed their number before this all started so we could like have a little group chat. I like would go back and like make sure to like say hi to like every new person and just really connect with them that way, because I find that I do have a couple of friends who I've actually become really close with and we have each other's numbers. So when we're taking calls, like we're able to communicate back and forth. So being able to have like a greater space to do that would be so amazing. So definitely want to make sure to have their numbers and things like that. So yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Well, that's
I think it's just gonna bring us back with a lot more energy and a lot more love and appreciation for each other, I guess.
Yeah, lots more appreciation, definitely.
It is amazing to hear about. I've heard about before. How when people are having training groups, I know Julia, you'd spoken about forming like WhatsApp groups together, like group chats and stuff. And I think that's awesome. I think that's amazing that, and it's great that you guys think that that will continue, maybe like to do more of that stuff, like be more proactive as volunteers. But I think the organization too, probably, I think we want to be more outgoing, and we want to be more involved and do more for our volunteers. Definitely, like even stuff like newsletters or like e-news updates and things like that. So it's good to hear that you guys think that's important. Definitely.
Yeah, we appreciate those things. You guys send them quite often. Like there's different newsletters. We have like in our location, like we appreciate like certain volunteers for their outgoing success. We have like appreciation boards where people post things, and then we have like our fantastic like coordinator at our place who like sends us out, like puts out snacks for us and like little things to play with and coloring books. Like I'm telling you guys, you need to come visit my center. Like you'll love it. And she just goes above and beyond to show us how much we like mean to the organization. So that's really helpful. And she highlights different things. So yeah, you guys do already a fantastic job with, especially even just the newsletters, keeping us all informed and up to date. Like I find that super helpful.
There's this world map that we have at my center, and what that world map does is that you pin the area that you spoke to today, and that really shows how much of a difference we're making everywhere. It kind of motivates all of us, like, oh my God, okay, so next we're going to try and put a pin here or whatever. It's just it's really nice to see.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, I love that.
I love that. That's great. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Do you get any other locations, like the States or like other provinces, or like have you had any like strange?
Yeah, I've had from all over Canada. Yeah. I'm not sure that I've taken any calls outside of Canada, but anywhere from Vancouver, the islands, Alberta, really all of them. And sometimes it can be challenging to find resources for people who live, in smaller cities that aren't even in Ontario. Yeah. It requires a lot of research. But it's nice to know that we're all connected.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Awesome. Actually, that kind of leads on to the next question in a way, like what we're talking about with, everyday volunteering and like undergoing a commitment with distress centers and like within the program, about the realities of like what it's like day to day. It'd be interesting to hear about like what did you expect when you first started volunteering, or before you started your training, or like when you initially went on the website and you thought, oh, this looks great, like I'd like to volunteer, or you heard from a friend, like all the way through to like training, through to doing your commitments with us. How have you changed? Like, what were your expectations, and like, are they different? And what's the reality?
Yeah, for sure, it's different. Like, you walk in thinking that it's a professional interview, everything has structure and everything. Although right now there's structure too. It's just now you've formed lots more relationships. You formed lots more networking. You actually remember callers. You build that helping bond with those callers. It becomes like second nature to want to help strangers, but the expectation does not match reality. That definitely, I would like to tell future volunteers that it's much deeper than that, and it's much more meaningful than what the trainings have for us.
Yeah, I would agree. And, in my mind, before I started volunteering, like I had this big idea of big office spaces, like a call center, bunch of cubicles, and tons, like 100 different volunteers working at the same time. Yeah. But, to my surprise, after the training, which we were all super curious to see what the call room looked like, you walk in and it's 2 or 3 desks. And sometimes they're not even full. Sometimes there's only one person on the line. And it just really goes to show you that there's a lot less people, less volunteers involved than you would think. And it shows that the organization is doing a really great job at keeping those volunteers, even though we don't have that large of numbers, that the people who are volunteering are people who care and they're committed and they truly are there because they want to make a difference. So I think, like Monica mentioned, that's what's been the most incredible reality, something that I didn't expect. And I'm so happy and proud to be a part of it.
Yeah, I can definitely speak to this, like, the scary big room with the cubicles. Like, I definitely thought that it would be like that too. And then when I pulled up to like this little cottage house, I was like, this is where I'm taking calls. It was super, super strange. It was like the cutest little house in the middle of, like, you wouldn't even find it anywhere. And so, as soon as I got there and I opened up the door, like, there's a basement, there's an upstairs, and like everyone's set up and like hanging out in their different areas and like debriefing or distressing, and there's like little corners for everything and a little kitchen, and everyone was just kind of doing their own thing but interacting with each other between the calls as they could. And so I found that was so different than I just expected everyone to be at their desks in their own zone, like not focused on anyone else. And I come in and everyone's like chilling, and I'm like, oh wow, that's just so very different. And one thing I guess what I didn't expect is that how deep the calls can get. Like sometimes like I'm crying on the phone with the caller because like we're connecting so deep on that emotional level and laughing with them. And I thought that going into training I'd be able to, put your emotions aside, but you really feel them together. And I think that the callers even appreciate that because they don't want to be talking to a brick wall. And we have those emotions. Those are human feelings. And so yeah, being able to just express them together and talk about the hard things together is something that I didn't expect would impact me, but definitely this has become like a huge passion for me. And I know so many people who I haven't talked to one person who didn't like the helpline or like coming in after they've been involved. Like they just try to continue like, oh, I want to try the next thing or be in the next program. It's always about what can I do? How can I help more? So I found that that's really amazing.
Yeah. I've also noticed that the reality is that if you spend so many hours at the office or remotely or however you're working, it kind of becomes something that you practice in your own relationships. Something you kind of, like the tactics that they teach you, the solution focus, all of that, it kind of becomes like an nature to you. You always want to do better. You kind of want to think positively because if you're not positive, how are you going to help other people, So it kind of becomes like you. It's a part of you.
For sure. And even if you can't be positive in the moment, one thing that I've learned that I've taken to my own relationships has been just to be there for people, right? And sometimes that can be really difficult when they're going through something that you can't give advice on or something that is out of their control that they can't change. And just to hold the space for people to be sad, I think that was the most challenging part for me because it brings a lot of feelings of discomfort. But that's what people need. At the end of the day, they're calling because they need support and they also need someone to listen. And so what we're here for. And I think in our own relationships too, it's really important not to always just bounce to, okay, so why don't you try this? And always give advice or simply just to listen.
Yeah. Definitely. Simply just listening has been huge. And like, as Monica said, you try it in your own relationships. It becomes a foundation for you. Like even when I am supporting like a friend who also volunteers at the helpline and we're talking and having a conversation and I'll like say something that someone at the helpline would say and she'll be like, oh, did you just helpline me? And I'm like, yeah, I think I did. Yeah. So it really is like, it just becomes second nature and you know how to really be in tough situations because the helpline puts you out of your comfort zone. Like Romina said, completely changes things. You have to listen to sometimes things that make you feel uncomfortable and you become stronger that way and more able to adapt to situations for sure.
Do you guys notice, when you're talking to a friend, maybe you need advice and they're not listening to you, they're not active listening, and it's so frustrating. Like you're talking to them and you're like, I'm not feeling great today, and they're like, yeah, I'm not feeling great too. Like you should do this. And you're like, no.
Yeah, totally.
Active listening. I just want to.
You're doing it wrong. Yeah.
Go take my training.
Yeah, honestly. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah, you just nailed it. Like, I prefer, like, definitely I love to talk to my friends who, like, when I'm struggling with something, my friends who are in, like, psych programs, who know what's going on, because I feel like there is definitely that disconnect if you don't have the training and know exactly which questions to ask. And that's not people being unhelpful or trying to be unhelpful. That's just, like, a lack of education on the way that we find it helpful to reach out to people, I find. So I feel like the more education and, like, the more videos like this that we do, the more people get to learn and hear about, wow, this actually helps support someone if we say it like this instead. So doing those kinds of things, yeah, I feel like this will be very helpful for a lot of people.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's good for me to get used to technology.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think on that note, I mean, like, you guys know, obviously, it's Volunteer Appreciation Week this week. You know, that's like a hugely important thing, especially now. It's almost kind of like the perfect timing, like the amount of effort and, you know, how draining maybe some of this volunteering can be, not just for us, but for any organization, any helpline, anything, you know, front line, so to speak. You know, it must be it must be intense. What can you speak a bit more about that, you know, during thinking about Volunteer Appreciation Week and how, you know, the current situation we're in?
I agree. There's volunteers are kind of like the front people, you know, one of the first callers actually speak to, and the training that we get is very intense. And although COVID was very unknown and we don't really have like a structure for COVID, but the training we received helped us kind of not manipulate, but say the right things, you know, to assure them that we're in this together, we're all a community, and that whatever you need, if you're lonely or you're in an abusive home or you're in a toxic house, that you have no friends or anything, that we are there for you. Although, yes, we're going through the same thing. We have our own COVID issues, but we're really just there to assure you that it's not going to last long. You know, yes, it's been a couple months, but what I mean to say is that it's going to go away. It's all going to go away soon. And just to get through it, we're here for you. You know?
Mm-hmm. I think it's incredible, just the work that our volunteers do. And as you said, Alex, and the fact that it's Volunteer Appreciation Week, the fact that, you know, our lines are still open 24/7, 365 days a year. You can't even feel that, you know, some volunteers may not have been volunteering during this period because it has been difficult for them. And I think it shows a lot of strength on the organization to be able to support each other during those times and pull through for the sake of our goal, which is supporting everybody. And so, yeah, I think I'm really glad that we're doing this webinar and reaching out and showing people that our work does matter and does make a difference.
Yeah, definitely. And in light of Volunteer Week, whether it's volunteers at the distress centers or volunteers anywhere in the world, volunteers do it because they have a passion for it, because we're here to, you know, fuel a fire that we have and we want to learn more and we want to be there. And I think that that's something that's just so real and something that we all come back and connect to at the end of the day is our reason why. And when we're able to just come together and work on whatever it is we're doing during these tough times, whether you're volunteering, you know, and doing research for COVID, or you're supporting people like we are, or, you know, you're helping out your neighbor. That's a volunteer. That's a free act of service. You're doing something amazing. So we just want to reach out to all of them and say thank you, because every little act that you do, it just goes such a long way, and it's so helpful and so needed right now. And it really fuels like a community that is supportive and connective, and we're here for one another. So Volunteer Week is just an amazing initiative to highlight these amazing things that go on and often go unnoticed.
Mm-hmm.
pat on the back for all volunteers.
Yes, all volunteers, you all rock.
You know, there's obviously like a huge demand and spike in volunteering, and like, you know, it's natural for humans to kind of want to jump in and like help out. Like, we want to help our communities. We want to reach out to elderly people, like isolated in the community. What would you say to anybody who's kind of, who really wants to volunteer, but like it, you know, it's, yeah, what would you say to them?
I would say find a cause that you truly care about, that really makes you want to get out of bed, or makes you really want to be there for other people or animals, whatever the cause is. And I think that's what really motivates somebody to volunteer. So if you can find what you are passionate about or what you want to contribute to, even if you're just curious, I say go for it. Try it out. There's no harm in it. And if anything, you're going to be making a difference, even in one person or something's life.
Yeah, I agree. Even with the barriers in place right now, I would say, like, if you're interested, for example, in the helpline, we're working on doing some remote training. But other than that, like online, is such a huge platform and forum. You can even, you know, help out by just reposting a picture or going on Instagram and talking about something that really means the world to you. And it takes that vulnerability to step out and do that. And that's a huge, like Monica's that huge pat on the back to you with every little step of the way that you can take. Whether big or small, it still makes a difference, even if it's just reposting something or liking a photo or sharing an initiative with a friend who needs it. Maybe you found a resource and you know someone who could really use that resource right now. Just sending that link over is just a way to take part and participate in this really tough time. It doesn't have to be anything big whatsoever.
Yeah, 100%. That small little thing, like you said, like something, you share something, it opens a lot of other doors. You can reject some, you can accept some, you do what you feel is right, and eventually you'll find your calling.
Was there anything that you like wanted to talk about that we didn't cover?
Well, I think for those, so we have a Facebook forum for my school, and a lot of people have been asking, how can I get in touch with helplines? They're not training, this and that. And it's true, they're not, because of the visible barriers. But the thing is, go on the Insta, go on the Facebook. That can be like a start. And once we get that training in store for remote services, then you can be the first ones to know, you know, like just start small.
I definitely. I think I'm okay on my end. We touched on everything that we planned on. So yeah, I think that went really amazing. And again, thank you to all of you, and thanks to Alex for hosting. Like, you're so